Here we are on the outside of our Thor Resonate 29D. We're going to be doing a technical walkthrough like you would get with a technician on the date of delivery if you purchased it. Great refresher on how everything operates. We're going to go through all the systems on here, give you a few tips and tricks along the way. We do have more videos that take deeper dives on maintenance of your RV, components in particular, troubleshooting, stuff like that. You can find that in the HAPS Helpful Hacks section of our Great American RV YouTube channel. Also, like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. Tell your camping friends where they can go for helpful resources with Great American RV. We're going to start in the front under the hood here, so let's detach you. Our hood has a little barrel key that opens that up on each side. Turn our flashlight on here. Up on the left side, of course, we have our AC system right there. We have our coolant tank right here with our fill on top of it. We have our 12-volt battery for our chassis side. So we're going to have two sets of batteries. One is going to be our chassis and the other is going to be for our house batteries. We'll show you where that is later, but this one's specifically for the engine and those components. You might see little breakers like this throughout your unit. See if I can get this one-handed here. If it were to ever be tripped, you're going to see that little yellow lever sticking out down there. Just go back, re-click it, and that restates at 12 volts. Have our air cleaner up there with our air filter in it, brake fluid reservoir right there, horns, windshield washer fluid, all that stuff. So this is all Ford components, including your chassis, brakes, anything like that is all Ford components. Any maintenance or recalls or warranty items that need to be done Ford related are going to have to go to a Ford dealership. You want to contact that Ford dealership, make sure they deal with RVs before you bring it in. On our camera, on our mirror right here, we're going to have our turn signal camera right there on the side. We'll have the same thing on the passenger side. Our first compartment right here is going to be just storage. You have lights in here. We'll have a little deeper storage there at the top. Our next compartment is another storage compartment, but we're also going to see a little board right there. That board is going to be for our one control system. That is our levelers. So this will go ahead and help tell that system when the unit is level and feed it back to our controls on the inside. Our next, right before this compartment right here, we'll see our city water connection. Our city water connection is if we do have water at the campsite, we go ahead and hook our water hose up to it, kick it on. That's going to supply water to all our fixtures on our unit. In our next compartment, we're going to have our dump station. We're going to see several tanks in this system. We'll also have our outdoor shower and a black tank flush. This black tank flush is going to be used to help flush out for our sewage system. And then we have a waste pump right here. We'll go over how all that works. And then, of course, we have our valves right here for everything else, okay? So let's go over this. We have a gray valve right here. That gray valve is for our gray tank. Our gray tank is shower water, sink water from our kitchen, stuff like that, okay? So we have our port there at the bottom. If we are hooked up to a hose there at the campsite, you can actually leave that valve open all the time. If we don't have our dump hose at the campsite, of course, you're going to need to leave it closed until we get to that dump station and we're ready to dump. So if you want to not have to worry about continuously coming to empty that out, because of course that tank will fill up a little faster with multiple people in the shower, so on and so forth, you can just leave it open. Our black tank right here, however, is going to be this black valve right here. Of course, we have a bigger pipe, as you can see. That is going to be for our sewer system. So everything that goes into our toilet is going to come out of that tank right there. That one needs to stay closed all the time until we are ready to dump. Regardless of whether we have that hose hooked up at the campsite, we do not leave that valve open. Reason being is, of course, we're putting solids into that tank, and those solids can dry up if we're not keeping water in the tank. So we want that valve closed, and we always want to have several gallons of water in that tank, and of course our chemicals to help that stuff decompose so it doesn't smell all nasty as well. So black tank always closed, gray tank, either way, whichever you want to do. Now, in order to flush this out, once we have our hose hooked up, we pull that valve, we let our solids go ahead and start emptying out along with any wastewater that's in there. And then we have our black tank flush line right there. We hook a water hose up to it. That's going to send water to a jet port on the other side of that tank. and help flush out that system. So we want to go ahead and do that several times until we're satisfied. We can check our sensors, make sure that our sensors are cleaned off and everything, and keep flushing that system until we're happy with it, okay? So we do have another video that goes into a deeper dive with a few more steps on black tank flush. You can visit that in our helpful hacks section. But next we're going to talk about our SantaCon system right here. So we can see how our pipe routes right here and over into our black tank right here. What we're actually going to have is ability to actually chew up some of the sewage in there, basically, to say it lightly. Well, what we do is we just hold this pump down. We'll hear that stuff filter through there, probably grind up. It's going to spit it back out into that tank. So basically it's a garbage disposal for your sewage tank. Helps that stuff flow out a little easier and less chance that anything's going to get clogged up whenever you dump. Whenever we are done dumping, we can actually rotate this like so. We can take our little cover right here, screw it in, and then we have that compartment is sealed. Okay. Next is going to be our hookup right here for our power. This is a 50 amp twist lock cord. Want to go ahead and insert it in, turn it to the right to lock it in. Then we take our little retainer ring, tighten it up on there so we can reduce any risk of this falling out. We can make sure it's good and tight in that plug and we don't have any arcing. From that point, then we hook up to our 50 amp power supply there at the campground. Want to do that second. That way we don't have any arcing when we plug this in. Next is going to be this little compartment right here. That is our coax for our indoor cable. So if we have coax ports at the campground, we can go ahead and hook up there. That coax will run to our TVs on the inside so we can scan for cable channels. Here we have our Suburban furnace. That furnace is going to be 12 volt powered and of course use propane to heat the air. We are going to have wheel simulators. We have them on the front as well. We'll notice these little indentions right here, okay? Let me shine the light, get a little closer on there. So we have that little line indention right there at the top. Those are the lug nuts that actually come off. All the other ones are decorative. So you use your tools, spin that off of there. You're gonna have 1, 2, 3, I believe, on here. Yep, one at the bottom. And then this cap right here will actually come off. This is a decorative piece. Behind it, you'll have a steel wheel. You have your valve extenders right here and right here to be able to go ahead and air up your tires. Behind that compartment, just more storage in here. We are going to have an override for our slide system right here. We do have information on that in our helpful hacks section on how to override that. It's a pretty popular video. You want to go check that out in the instance that your slide gets stuck or you have any issues with it. Next is going to be our generator. Let's take a minute. We'll pop this cover off and give you some more information on it. All right, on our generator, of course, we're going to have our start stop button right there. We would hold the stop down and let our system prime. This is a gas generator, so you're going to hear that fuel pump kick on. Fuel pump's going to start priming this system and prepare it for starting. Hold that down for about 20 seconds or so, and then we can hold down our start button and it will start. Red light will stay on once it's started and running. Now this is going to pull fuel from your fuel tank that your engine would use, but the pickup tube is going to stop at a quarter tank, so it doesn't run your engine dry in the event that you forget that your generator's running, you're away from it, so on and so forth. It won't leave that fuel tank empty. Over here we're going to have our oil fill to the right. We have our air cleaner off to the left-hand side. Carburetor is right there. And then of course we have our actual 30 amp breaker right there. As you can see, a little switch there on the side. In the event we don't have power in our unit, we're running our generator. We've checked our breakers on the inside that we'll show you in a little while. Want to come out and check that breaker right there. We might have overamped our generator and it is now tripped out. If that happens, turn off some of the components on the inside, AC, stuff like that. We want to come back and reset this breaker and kick it back on. And the reason we want to turn off some of those appliances is so it doesn't overload it and trip it again. So kind of keep that in mind. This will need 12 volts coming in order for this to go ahead and crank up. That's going to pull off of your house batteries. You'll see that wire coming in right there. Once we do get it started, if we choose to start it from the outside, we need to put that cover back on so it ventilates properly. Otherwise it will overheat. We do have start stop buttons on the interior. We'll show you there later. On the back side, of course, we're going to have our fuel fill right here. our ladder to be able to access our roof, and then we'll have a backup camera to help us back up or see behind us while we're traveling down the road. Down at the bottom, you do have your 7-way and your receiver hitch there at the bottom to be able to tow behind you. Our ladder access is important because we do need to gain access to our roof, and we need to check our sealant every 60 to 90 days. If we're not getting up there maintaining that sealant, we are going to end up having water leaks and stuff like that. Same goes for all our sealant on our trims, around our windows, our compartment doors, stuff like that. We need to make sure we're checking for cracking, peeling, deterioration. Also, with the flex of the unit, things can open up and allow water entry into our unit. It says in the owner's manual, customer maintenance, this is like changing the oil in your car. Every 60 to 90 days, check your roof. Make sure you haven't hit any low-lying tree limbs, stuff like that. Make sure we're taking care of the sealant up there because they're not going to cover water damage from lack of maintenance. So probably the number one most neglected thing that campers do is that maintenance on that portion of the unit, and it's probably the number one thing that damages most of your units. So whether you keep it in a barn, under a cover, in a shed, out in the sun, whatever, check your sealant, please, because we want to make sure that this lasts for a long time. All right, so to the right side, we're going to have that side camera right there on that mirror. More wheel simulators there. We have our entry door right here with our electric step. Our electric step, whenever we open and close our door, can go ahead and stay out when we're camping, or if we want it to run in and out, we can go ahead and hit our step switch right there, and now our step will go ahead and go in. That's going to operate off of a little magnet right here that senses when that door is open and closed, with that magnet there and that magnet there. So if your steps aren't working, you want to check that magnet and see if it is still attached. This can get knocked off from time to time, kids, so on and so forth. And then of course we're going to have an override. So if your steps are off and we close that door, your engine, when we crank it up, will override those steps and actually pull them in. That way they don't get ripped off while you're traveling, but it's always great to check before you hit the road. Here we have our freshwater connection. That is to fill our fresh tank. Stick a water hose in there, fill it up. We'll go over where our meter is on the inside to let us know how much is in it. And that is so we can take water with us on the road or to a campsite that doesn't have water supplied at it. That's your onboard water storage, which is going to be the tank located right below it. Okay, below that, we're going to have our valve to be able to empty that tank. That adds extra weight to our unit. It can also become stagnant if we leave it in there for an extended period of time. So go ahead and empty it out. If we don't need it, we're just going to turn that valve straight just like that. The water will dump out and we can drain that system. Compartment right behind that is going to be our house batteries for our unit. We'll open that up. We're going to see a little 50-amp breaker right here, just like the one in the front, a little yellow lever that'll pop out in the event that it is tripped. We can go ahead and just push it back in. We're going to have several other ones towards the back too. So if we have any 12-volt issues, this is one place we can come look. A couple of inline fuses right there. And of course, we'll have our batteries right here. One thing we need to realize on our batteries is they do have little caps on here. Those caps will have to be pulled off. You want to check your water level on those batteries. Make sure the water level is above our plates. That way it doesn't fry our battery when we're charging them up. Outdoor TV in our outdoor entertainment compartment right there. This is a Connex TV. So we're going to have Bluetooth capabilities, our radio capabilities. It is a smart TV, have a lot of options on there. Do have a video that goes over some of the Connex functions and how it works in our helpful hack section. Do have another compartment right there for more storage. We'll go to our hot water heater right here. This is our Girard tankless water heater system, so it's on demand. It will go ahead and kick on whenever you turn the hot water on in your unit. A couple of things to keep in mind outside is this is an on-off switch right here, generally used by technicians to go ahead and shut the system off outside if we need to. And then we also have a 12-volt fuse right there. Might want to check out if your system happens to not be working. So 12 volts to power it up, and of course propane to go ahead and heat that water on your system. Down below that, we're going to have our propane tank. Regulator is right behind this black cap right here, and then of course on-off valve to turn your propane on, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. We're gonna have our gauge right there to tell us how much propane is in it. Those two valves up top are used for filling. Have a 110 outlet right here for outdoor stuff. that is going to be GFCI protected. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the inside. Now moving on to our outdoor kitchen, we have our outdoor Blackstone griddle right here. We can hold down these blue tabs on each side at the same time, pull that griddle out. If we want to extend it more, it does have a second stage. We go ahead and hold those down, pull out that second stage. Now we have a quick connect right here with our hose, another quick connect here. That is going to hook to our quick connect right here for our propane. Pull that cap off. In order to insert this valve right here will have to be off in order for this to go in. If it's on, it will not allow you to get it in there. So once it's connected, then we turn that valve on so our gas can actually flow out to our grill. To disconnect it, you can't do it, once again, until that valve is off. Now we can disconnect it and store our griddle. Over to the left, outdoor shower for a quick connect hose. We can see our quick connect hose right here on the side. That is going to work just like that propane quick connect right there. Plug it in, and then we'll have hot and cold water right there. Slide that back in. We push those two blue knobs down right here on each side, and we can go ahead and push that back in. Let's look at our awning and get a little information on that. All right, so our awning operates off a little in and out switch right there on the left-hand side. As we walk into our door, we have our actual awning out here. We actually have a light in here as well. Our awning operates off our little switch right here, in and out. We have our awning light right there. And it's gonna light up on that strip. Have our actual awning with the canvas out here. So our awning is mainly a sunshade. We're not really wanting to keep it out during high winds, high rains, anything like that, because water will accumulate on that awning and it will actually collapse. We should always pitch our awning to the front or to the back, meaning lean it. Okay, we can do that by getting a little step ladder. We're seeing that knob right there. We loosen that knob, make sure it should be loose already. We pull our awning, we can see a little track right there. And then we pull our awning down, we tighten that up. That will lean our awning down so water can drain out of it. Now I know I said don't keep it out in the rain. You're still gonna have AC condensation get up there. You're gonna have dew. Light rain is generally fine. Just make sure that water can drain off of there. Heavy rains, heavy winds, roll that awning in. If you're leaving your campsite for an extended period of time, roll that awning in. You never know what's around the corner. You don't want to come back to a disaster, okay? So keep those kind of things in mind. It will end up in an insurance claim otherwise. Right when we walk in the door, we talked about our awning light right there. We have an interior light switch there. Have a step light right next to our step on and off switch we talked about. Have a battery disconnect right here. A battery disconnect, off and on, literally does what it says. It turns that battery off and on and disconnects it from our unit. And we want to use that when we store our unit. So anytime we're parking our unit unplugged, we want to turn that disconnect off. If we're plugged in when we store our unit, we want to leave it on. That way our charging system can actually charge our batteries while your unit is being stored. If not, those batteries will likely be dead if you leave that on and your unit unplugged. So plugged in, leave it on, unplugged, turn it off. Anytime we are using our unit, we want to go ahead and have that switch on, of course, so our 12-volt items will work. Over to the left, we're going to have our inverter switch. Our inverter changes 12-volt power to 110 power. So let's say we're on the road, we don't want to run our generator, but we need to run our refrigerator. Hold that button down right there, green light comes on, our inverter is now on, and our 110 refrigerator should be on, and along with a couple of other small 110 items too, like maybe your TV or a couple of outlets. To turn it off, hold that button down for just a second and then let off, and that system will turn off. Down below it, we're going to have our 10 amp Go Power solar controller system. It's pretty much plug and play. It's set. It's going to monitor your solar. If you are out in the sun, you're getting some solar waves on those panels up there, it will go ahead and charge your system. Up in the front, of course, we're going to have, once again, that Ford chassis we talked about. Pretty standard system. We're going to have our controls to operate our menu items on the dash. We have our control off to the right to operate our radio system. And then off to the left, we're going to have our electronic leveling system, which we'll go over some more information on that right now. All right, so our electronic leveling, our engine is going to have to be running our emergency brake on. We go ahead and kick that system on. We're going to notice our voltage up here. Voltage is very important. The system itself, our pump system, is going to be pulling off our house batteries. and we want to make sure that that voltage is always at a proper voltage before we kick it on. Otherwise, this system will shut down. So we're there at the campsite, ready to hook up everything. Want to go into auto level right off the bat. We hold down that auto level button, and that system will begin to extend those jacks and auto level your system. Now during this process, you don't want to be moving around inside your unit, jumping around, all that stuff, because it can throw off that sensor on there and your unit may not level properly. So try to stay still while this process is being active. So during this process, we're going to notice like the little red light might pop up at different corners of our system. That's letting us know what area is low on our unit. So if we were doing this manually, we could use this to identify which side of our unit is not at the correct height. So then we would click on that side, those rear jacks would extend up, and then eventually that light should disappear, and our green light right here in the middle is going to let us know that it is level. Now, of course, our auto level process is doing that on its own. It's the easiest way to go ahead and level out our unit. So once it's done, it'll let us know everything is a success, and this system will go ahead and kick off. And this system will go back to our regular main menu. Now we have a couple of other options on here. We'll go into our manual level real quick just to run you through that. If we hit enter on that, this is going to let us know where our level is. Okay, so our objective is 0 plus or minus a couple of points on there. And so if we want to go into manual mode because our auto level isn't working, or we want to tweak it a little bit, hit enter, go in our manual, we hold this down for a second, and it's going to jump up on that front end a little bit, and that system will activate those jacks. Same thing in the rear. But we start to notice we have a little blinking light right here. That means that left side is low, just like I was talking about during that auto level. Hold that down for a second, it'll kick those left jacks, and we're just going to bump it until that goes away and our green light comes on, and according to this, we're level and ready to go. We can scroll down a little bit more. Now initially, whenever you scroll down, you're going to hit that manual, that auto retract right there. Okay, auto retract, hit enter to begin, and that system will begin to automatically retract those jacks. That's what we would push whenever we're ready to hit the road. Also to mention in that manual mode is if we want to retract any of these jacks because we maybe overshot a little bit, hold down that retract button until that light kicks up, and then we can hold down this button and it will retract that area. Whenever we want to go back to extending, push it one more time, then we can go back to extending those jacks. So once everything's done, it'll let you know the jacks are up, you're ready to roll, and you can put it in drive and hit the road. We do have a deeper dive on this system on there that goes over how to do the 0 point. So if your leveling isn't quite right, it says it's level. Down below that, we're going to have our mirror heat system right here, our movable motorized mirrors controls right here. We're going to have our lights right there, emergency brake pedal, and our release. We're going to have our sunshade right here to go up and down with our privacy shade in the front. Have our cab lights here. Now over to our radio. This one's not just a radio, it also has our slide out controls on here. So one of the first things you'll probably see is this main screen right here. You will have Apple CarPlay, Auto, Android Auto on here, stuff like that. You'll also have your USB to be able to hook your phone up to it to be able to operate some of that stuff. But if we also scroll over, we're going to have our Bluetooth phone system, really easy to connect. You go ahead and tap that button and we hit search. Now we can go ahead and search for our Bluetooth on our phone. We'll go ahead and find that in our settings on our phone, pair up with this unit, and then we can connect to it and have some of our Bluetooth features on there. Want to go back, we hit home. Of course, we'll have our camera system. We have our backup camera. If we want to travel down the road watching it, we can go to there. When we initiate our blinkers, it will automatically swap over to those blinkers that's on that side. If we put it in reverse, this backup camera is going to pop up automatically as well. Our next option on here is the AV in, micro SD, equalizer settings, all just kind of your general radio settings. We have our RV control right here. We click on that, and now we can see that we have our shore power fault right here. If this was red, we would go ahead and want to look into that. We have our propane control right here, and then our black tank, fresh tank, and gray tanks. So we have our fresh tank. That is going to be that fresh potable water we bring with us all the time. Black is going to be sewage. Gray is going to be shower and sink water. Our extend and retract for our slide out right here on the bottom left. That's how we're going to operate our slide. In order for that to operate, our ignition is going to have to be on, so engine running and emergency brake activated. Same thing like our leveling system, right? And once all that's on, you can hit extend and retract and operate that slide out. For our emergency start, basically that's a set of jumper cables that connects your chassis batteries with your house batteries. If your engine is dead, it won't run. We want to go ahead and hold this button down, and it connects those two items, those two sets of batteries, so it will initially jump off your chassis battery. Now that's that solenoid in the house battery compartment we pointed out in there, and then it will work in reverse too. So if our house side is dead, we want to start our generator, but the batteries are dead, but our engine is good, crank that engine up, hold this down, and then we can go start our generator. Our tank heaters right here, we have black, gray. Those are heaters for that tank system. That way in cold temperatures, we can turn them on and that stuff won't freeze. Our water pump is going to be our 12-volt pump that's going to pull from our fresh tank system right here and supply water to all our fixtures. So we use that when we don't have a city water connection hooked up. If we do, we want to go ahead and make sure that pump is off. That way that system isn't constantly having pressure on it. We want to also recognize that this is an on-demand water pump. Whenever we turn our faucet on, of course, that pump is going to vibrate, it's going to run, you're going to hear it, that's normal. Whenever we shut that faucet off, it should turn off within a few seconds after it's primed that system, and then you shouldn't hear it run again besides maybe every once in a blue moon, okay? And all that's doing is keeping pressure in the water lines. If you're sure all your fixtures are off and you still hear that pump running, we want to come over here and turn that water pump off and investigate, because we either have a water leak in a system or we have an empty fresh tank, both of which, once you run out of water, can lead to a burn up water pump. A leaking system can lead to a lot of water damage. So we have that AGS system. We saw it right here at the bottom. We can also get it from our RV control right here at the top. Our AGS system is automatic generator start. Okay, so if we want our system to turn on with just some cues, right, we can go ahead and enable that system. It'll go ahead and activate it to where that system is on. Now it's going off of whatever we are commanding it to do based on battery levels, okay? So let's jump over to the right. We can also start, stop, prime our unit from the inside, just like we talked about outside. It will give you your battery level and our temperature inside the unit. On the next levels right here, we can activate it based on our battery level if we wish. So if our batteries get down to 11.5 volts, our generator wants to kick on and it's going to start charging till that system has reached the voltage that the batteries are charged. We can adjust that if we wish to where it kicks on at 11.5, 6, 7, 8, 12, whatever you want. Same thing with our stop voltage. Our run time. So initially when we kick our system on, our batteries are going to reach that 13.3 because our charging system has kicked on. We don't want it to just kick off, right? So we want to set the run time on here if we want it to run for like 30 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever, and then a maximum of 300 minutes, or we can go lower, okay? So adjustment on how long you want that generator to run and charge those batteries. Our start temperature is based on our thermostat on the interior. So if we set our thermostat to go ahead and not vary from 70 degrees, okay, this will go ahead when your thermostat reaches off from 70 degrees, once we have it set there, then it will command the thermostat to kick on just like it would any other time. And now your generator is going to start. It's going to allow that air conditioner to run, and then it'll run for at least 30 minutes, and then it will turn off. We have our quiet time right here, start and stop. It won't run between 10 and 8. We can go ahead and change whatever we want there. Main thing with that is we want to make sure our clock up here is correct in order for that to work properly. And we can go ahead and do that by going to our main screen right here, sliding over, going to settings, and we can go to our time and initiate the proper time in our system. Down below that, we're going to, of course, have our radio knob right there, voice control, SD card, our mode, we can swap our sources right there, and a couple other options in there. Hit home, we can hook our USB from there to our phone as well. Down below that, AC controls, traction control system off and on, and our hazards off to the left. And then we have our front area right there with a little storage underneath. We pull that up, add a little desktop for our passenger, and then of course we have our seats. Our seats are controlled over with controls right there up and down for our system. And then we have our control right here. If we lift that, kind of hard to see, that little lever right there poking out. If we take that lever and push it back, now our seat can rotate left and right, and we can go ahead and provide more seating that will face our cabin area, and we can flip it back around to lock it in. So we're going to go ahead and roll our slide out right in. We talked about it, ignition on. Go ahead and initiate that emergency brake. Go over to our RV controls right here, and now we're going to hit extend. Now anytime we extend, we want to make sure that our seat is far enough up to where our slide fascia doesn't hit that seat right there, and we don't cause any damage to the seat or the fascia. You always want to check and make sure you don't have anything behind your slide outs before you roll them out. That way we don't cause any damages. Now a little tip for this particular slide out system is this is a Schwintek, so once we run it out all the way, we want to hold that button down for an extra 5 seconds just to make sure the motors have gone to their full extent, and we can let off and we're good to go. Shut our engine off and we'll move on into our unit. We have our dinette booth area right here. That dinette booth does have wireless charging on that table right here. And we can also drop this down for more sleeping space. We do that by pulling this handle right here. That will disengage that piece here. And then we can push down on our table, and that will actually slide down. Move our cushions out of the way, push it down all the way, move our back cushions over the table, and now we have more sleeping space. Pick it up all the way. We take our little handle right there, re-engage it, and now we have our table back. We're also going to have our bed lift system right here for more sleeping in here. We have our controls right there, but before we do that, we do need to pull our travel pins out of here. Pull those out on each side. And now we can go activate our system. Pretty easy to activate. Off and on, and then raise and lower, okay? Okay, our bed's down. We do have that protective netting around the side, keep kids from falling off. We are going to have these 2 latches right here. That's for a ladder that comes with the unit that's back in the back. And they can go ahead and access it. To go ahead and run it back up, just go ahead and hit the raise button. It's going to come up. Make sure that bed is cleared off. We don't want to leave any objects up there and put any strain on that system. Once again, same kind of system. We want to hold that button down for extra 5 seconds. Make sure everything is kosher on that. And then we have our travel latches right there we talked about. Want to go ahead and just put those back in the hole. That way we have some security as far as our system goes. We got one on each side. That way we have that security. We don't have to worry about it falling down while we're traveling down the road. Your controls for that bed lift system are going to be in that left front compartment. Once again, another override. This override is going to work the same as our Schwintek slide override. So if you want to watch that video, you can. There's also instructions on the actual controller itself on how that system can be overridden. Back across our unit, of course, we're going to have our recliners right here. We're going to have storage up top, push button lighting on most of our stuff right here, USB ports there, indoor speakers for our tunes. We have our AC system up there. We'll talk about that real quick. We have these vents right here that open and close. These are quick dump vents, okay? This is if we want the air just to push out in this central area right here. But we're also going to have our ducts just like you would in your house. So how that works is we want these closed off if we want our air to circulate through our ducts and help kind of circulate everything throughout our entire unit. They're not going to blow out the ducts if we have both of our quick dump valves open there. We have our filter right here. We can pull these two tabs on each side, pull that down. Want to clean that filter every so often so we can make sure we are not restricting the air to our unit. Next, we want to go ahead and take a look at our Coleman Mach thermostat right here and how that operates. All right, this is our thermostat for our AC system. When we click that button once, it'll give us the option for mode. Our first mode is cool. We hit that button again, and then we can choose between high or low auto or high and low all the time. So high and low all the time will keep that fan running constantly, even though that compressor is not on. Auto will shut that fan off whenever our compressor is turned off. Once we go ahead and initiate those two items, our AC will kick on, and we can choose our desired temperature by turning that knob right there. And the larger number on that screen is going to be our room temperature. So here we're set at 63 and our actual temperature is 83. Cool on is going to show you that that system is initiating and that system will kick on. Our next option on there, if we hit that button twice again, is heat. When we go ahead and click it right there, it will bring on the heat, show our room temperature as well as our set to temperature. Our heat is only going to come out of the lower areas. It's not going to come out of that rooftop AC. If you have air blowing out of that rooftop area, then we want to make sure that we don't have the fan on high or low on that cool option. So we would go back to our cool and we would check right here and make sure it's on auto. Our last option on here is cool and heat. In this case, we can go ahead and do the same thing, choose our fan options, just have a set temp in between the furnace and the AC. It will keep that temperature set at that 72-degree mark. Now, in order to turn that system completely off, click it twice again and we can go to off. All right, so as we talked about, we have heat on there. Your heat is going to come out of the vents down below, and then our cool air is going to come from our vents up top, right? So we have our TV right here. Our TV is going to be 110 powered, as we can see, and we have our coax coming through there. And that coax is going to supply cable and antenna for our unit. Now, if we're hooked up to cable, we want to make sure that we have this antenna boost that's up in this top left cabinet off. So that's what that little green light indicates. Want to make sure that is off when we scan for our cable channels. If we are scanning for antenna channels because we don't have cable, want to make sure that light is on. This is a 12-volt boost for your antenna to help pick up more channels in your area. Moving down back in our hallway, we have our AGS system right here. That AGS system is our automatic generator start. Okay, so all the settings that we talked about on our display on the radio system for AGS, this is just a quick shortcut to turn that system off and on. It's also a quick shortcut to take a look at our tank system. So we have battery, fresh, black, and gray. Green indicating that, hey, we're good to go. Red indicating that we're bad. So for fresh tank, it'd be red because we're empty. Black and gray, it's going to be red because those systems are full. And of course, battery is going to be red because it's low. If we're green, we're empty here and full here and full here, okay? And to activate our AGS system, just hit that button right there. That light turns on, lets us know that system is active. We want to turn it off. Turn it off. If we want these lights to turn off, maybe they're a nuisance at night, just hit it for 2 seconds. That system will turn off and then we can kick it back on. Your AGS system will still be active even though the lights are off. All you do is just turn the lights off on the display. To the right of that AGS quick sheet right there, we have our bathroom. We're going to have our resettable GFCI breaker right here. This is going to be our main outlet for all of our wet locations. If our system is tripped, we're going to see that little red light on there. And this is, once again, going to control all of our wet outlets, like our ones outside or in our kitchen. We hit that reset right there, and that will reset those outlets. This is going to trip because we have too many coffee makers, griddles, stuff like that plugged into our 110 system for those GFCI outlets, or it's because that outlet got wet. So if it trips on us right after we hit that reset button, want to go unplug some of those items or make sure that the outlets aren't wet and then come back and try it again. We have that waste pump switch right here that we can also activate from the inside, help circulate some of the stuff, basically like we talked about, our garbage disposal for our black tank. Have a fan switch right there to activate our vent up top. It's suggested to go ahead and ventilate when you take showers, reduce the heat and humidity in your bathroom. If you want to do that, light switch off and on. We have our Girard tankless water heater control right here. We'll go over some quick information on that. Here we have our Girard tankless water heater control. We have our Celsius Fahrenheit button right here at the top left to swap between the two types of temperature. We have our on-off button, and we have our up and down that will change the temperature that we have set for our unit. Now, once we initiate our hot water, you'll see a couple of things happen. You'll see our temperature up here change to our output temperature, which is the temperature of the water coming out of our tankless water heater system. We'll also see a shower head icon at the bottom right. That shows that water is in use. And then we'll see our fan icon on the bottom left, lets us know that our tankless water heater system is initiating. Once we see the flame that pops up in the middle of our unit, that means that our system is actually heating that water, and we'll see that temperature begin to increase. Now, these systems only run for 20 minutes before going into a shutoff mode. In the event that you're still using hot water after that point, just turn the hot water off and turn it back on, and it will reinitiate and begin to heat water again. All right, down below that, we're going to have our toilet activated by our foot pedal there on the side. Open that up, valve opens up, and it will go ahead and flush our system. Now, there's only a couple of things we want to put in here when we're talking sewage. Number 1 and number 2, liquids and solids. Liquids, we just hit that pedal and flush it. If it's solids, want to barely push that pedal down right there before this ball valve at the bottom activates, and it'll start spitting water out and fill this bowl. Want to fill that bowl half to 3/4 of the way. That way when we do flush it, we can actually help have enough water to push those solids down the drain, reduce opportunity for anything to get clogged, and everything can make it down to the black tank. Besides that, we're putting RV toilet paper only, and we're also putting our chemicals in there, so it will help dissolve any of that stuff in there. Of course, help it smell nicer too. Have our bathroom shower right here. Our shower can be activated with our hot and cold right here. We do have an on-off button up at the top. You can utilize that when you're dry camping. Maybe you don't have a gray tank dump and you don't have a city water connection. So we're trying to conserve the amount of water we're putting into our gray tank as well as the amount of water we're using out of our fresh tank. So we can initiate that on-off valve right there at the shower head rather than shutting it off here. It just makes it a little bit easier. We can do that in between rinsing off and lathering up. Back out into our main area, we have our kitchen. We have our sink right there. We have our microwave, all standard appliances. We have a little vent right here with a fan and a light. And then, of course, we're going to have our Furrion 3-burner stove. Furrion 3-burner stove is going to work off of our propane. We have that glass top right there. We leave it down for more counter space. Flip it up to cook. Want to make sure it's also down when we travel. In order to activate our stovetop, of course, our propane is going to have to be on outside, right? Once it's on, we turn our little knob right there to the fire emblem, and then we just start cranking, okay? Once it lights up, you are good to go, ready to start cooking, okay? Now, generally, after you've pulled your unit out of storage, you're going to have air in your lines, right? Because you probably turned your propane tanks off or you ran out of propane. You're generally going to have air in your system. So it's always a good idea as soon as you turn your propane on to come over to your stovetop and go ahead and light it. Now, it's not going to be as quick as it just was whenever I lit that system, so just keep that in mind. It may take, several clicks for this system to light and for that air to bleed out. It's also a good idea just to turn all 3 of them on whenever you're doing that, just to make the process a little bit quicker. Once that's done, let it run for about 30 seconds. Let it kind of burn any air out of that system. It's a good idea to do that before we operate things like our tankless water heater or our furnace, which are other propane using items. We want to go ahead and burn the air out. That way it'll reduce the risk of those items going into a fault. Same thing goes for our burner for our oven down here at the bottom. We can go ahead and use that clicker to ignite it. We can see the spark down there for our igniter, so this one can utilize that. The first time you light it, if you can get a long stem lighter back there, go for it. It'll make it a lot easier than having to crank on that thing, because it will take a lot of turns to get that to light for the first time when you're purging that air out. But to operate, we're going to go ahead and turn this to our flame icon once again. Push and hold that in. Crank on our igniter or use a long stem lighter. Light that up, hold it down for another 20 or 30 seconds, and then we go ahead and turn to our temperature, and then we'll go ahead and light up our burner tube at the bottom. We can close our oven and begin to cook. To the left of that, we're going to have our Norcold fridge and freezer right here. Fridge and freezer are going to be controlled by our little buttons up top, which we'll go over in a second. Main thing to remember is that when we turn this system off, we need to air this fridge and freezer out. Means we need to open up our doors, turn it off, and let everything defrost, all that stuff. Wipe down our fridge, make sure we get the water out of the tray of this freezer right here, and wipe it all down, let it dry out, because if we leave water in here and it drips down, damages our wood components around our fridge, we are going to run into an issue where manufacturers aren't going to cover that kind of damage. Consider customer maintenance to defrost and store your fridge properly. It's also going to reduce the risk of mold and mildew in your fridge as well. To our controls up top here, just hold this power button down for a few seconds and that will turn our system on. And then of course we can adjust our temperature controls right here, 1 through 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the coldest. And we have our freezer and fridge controls right here. When it's lit up, that is what it is adjusting your temperature on. And then we have a night mode right here. If we go ahead and hold that down for a second, that initiates the night mode. What that does is it reduces the amount of work that that compressor is doing to reduce the amount of 12-volt power it's doing. So we initiate that when we are dry camping. We're trying to conserve our battery power. We initiate that night mode. So the compressor is basically being commanded to slow its roll, right? Best way I can put it. And now it's not going to work as hard. So we want to reduce the amount of times we're in and out of this fridge whenever we have that night mode activated. Another thing that I'll add about our fridge, I know I talked about our inverter, turning it on to operate things like our fridge, but this is a 12-volt refrigerator right here, so it's going to work strictly off of battery power. Moving on towards the rear, we do have our TV with storage right behind it. We're not going to see another antenna booster back here. That one antenna booster in the front is going to control the antenna boost for all of our TVs. Below that, we're going to have our other rear air conditioner thermostat right here. This one is going to work just like the one in the hallway, except it's not going to have heat. Your heat controls off of that hallway thermostat runs for the whole entire unit. Same thing for our AC assembly. It's going to work the same way. We have those quick dump valves right there, and then we have our air ducts right up there at the top. Storage under our bed right there to the right side. I have plenty of storage underneath that bed for you. And of course we have our storage right here in our rooms here. I have our ladder for our bunkhouse right there. We're also going to have some component information from Thor right there with some of the appliances in your unit. And below our bed, walk over here, we have our 110 breaker system as well as our 12-volt fuse panel right there. We can see everything's labeled. This is the first place we want to go to when we have an issue. 12-volt power, 110 power, everything's labeled. You have an issue with something, check that breaker, check that fuse, and make sure everything's working properly in there. It's not tripped, it's not blown, stuff like that. Before we get too panicked, it may just be a simple power issue. To the left of that, we're going to have our COLP detector. This does have an audible alarm on it. We need to test that every now and again, make sure it is working. It is 12-volt powered. It's hardwired into your battery system. We're also going to have a expiration date on here. We unscrew these two screws. That expiration date is going to be stamped on the back of it, and they're usually good for about 5 years. And we want to go ahead and change those out whenever that time comes. And of course, we're also going to have smoke detectors in our unit, powered by a 9-volt battery, just like at your house. Check that every now and again. Make sure that audible alarm is working on there too, and make sure your batteries are changed out. That wraps up everything on our Thor Resonate.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit, and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us, and keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores, where we bring the how-to you.